get lost in the internet, following rabbit trails as I've researched any number of things. Which begs the question, is it just me, or is learner disorientation really a problem? Researchers think it is. There has been an exponential increase in the use of online learning resources in the last decade. Opportunities abound to expand learning by accessing supplementary resources with just the click of a mouse. Creators of e-learning modules offer hyperlinks to media intended to enrich the educational experience and boost academic achievement. But is access to unlimited information a benefit or a detriment to effective learning? How does learner age or prior knowledge affect learner disorientation in a hypermedia environment? In what ways does a learner's prior knowledge influence the effectiveness of text structure or topology to reduce disorientation in hypermedia environments? In what ways does a learner's prior knowledge change the effectiveness of navigational supports within hypermedia environments to reduce disorientation? In order to find appropriate articles to review, I use two search terms: disorientation and prior knowledge. I required that my resources be peer-reviewed academic journals and that the texts be available in full-text documents in PDF format. I also limited my review to online learning environments, but I included learners of all ages. My search began with the ScienceDirect Journals database provided by the JMU Library. After entering my search terms, it became obvious very quickly that the Computers and Human Behavior academic journal had numerous articles that fit my search parameters. The date distribution of the articles pointed to the 15-year review period from 2003 to 2018 if I wanted to do a comprehensive review. Articles were first evaluated with particular attention to the study's hypotheses, study group characteristics, and conclusions. Then the articles were categorized based on their applicability to the research questions for this review. I wrote a short discussion of each article to create an annotated bibliography and then provided a synthesis of findings in this culminating literature review. The initial database search provided 20 articles that met the search criteria. After review, 2 articles fell outside the scope of the search. 1 article was removed. The second article was included in the review due to the scarcity of research on learner disorientation in the older adult population. My research questions provide the framework for my findings. My first research question was, how does learner age or prior knowledge affect learner disorientation in hypermedia environments? Prior content knowledge makes it easier to understand and organize new information, which helps the learner process the information, thus avoiding conceptual disorientation, or what I like to call overload. Prior experience using computers and the internet helps learners avoid structural disorientation, that lost in space feeling that Conklin described. Age-related conditions can also affect disorientation. The lack of abstract thinking in children and the decline in spatial knowledge in older adults both lead to increased disorientation. The second research question was, how does a learner's prior knowledge influence the effectiveness of text structure or topology to reduce disorientation in hypermedia environments? All learners perform well with minimal disorientation in a linear topology. Linear text structure is the one we are most familiar with. The hypermedia environments, hierarchical and network, were detrimental to low prior knowledge learners, and they weren't particularly helpful for high prior knowledge learners. The difference reached the point of significance, though, for low prior knowledge learners. High prior knowledge learners were able to successfully navigate in the hypermedia environments. Despite their ability to navigate the topologies, the high prior knowledge learners did not experience significant improvements in their learning outcomes. And finally, the third research question. How does a learner's prior knowledge change the effectiveness of navigational supports within hypermedia environments to reduce disorientation? Navigation supports are essential in hypermedia environments. When content leaves a linear topology and a forward-backward navigation is no longer possible. The learner must have some type of navigational support in order to move throughout the subject matter. Prior knowledge plays a huge part in determining the effectiveness of the supports provided. Low prior knowledge learners find hypermedia navigation supports complicated and confusing. They don't understand how the elements within the subject matter relate to one another. Low computer and internet knowledge learners don't understand the functionality of the navigation supports and often don't know where to look for or how to use the supports provided. High prior knowledge learners find navigation supports very helpful, but their use doesn't enhance learning outcomes. Rather, it seems that high prior knowledge learners spend more time exploring the topology than learning the content. For some, the word topology may be new. Topology describes how parts of a system are arranged and interrelated. Many people are familiar with organizational charts. Those are a type of topology. Animal classification relationships are presented in a topology, and educational designers choose a topology for their online content. Linear topology is the most basic method of presenting information. As teachers and students, we're familiar with textbooks that present information one chapter at a time. Information is presented sequentially, and each topic builds on knowledge from the previous topic. Linear topology gives the learner very little freedom of choice in how the information is presented. Instead, this topology assigns all control and responsibility for effective learning to the educational designer. The hierarchical topology introduces some freedom of navigation to the learner. It is designed to follow a linear presentation, but uses navigational links to allow the learner to choose his or her own path. Note how connections between chapters occur only at the top level of the hierarchy. This restriction allows the educational designer to limit access to new information until prerequisites are met. In a networked or referential topology, the topic boxes look very similar to the hierarchical topology. The difference appears when you consider the navigation between and amongst the topic boxes. In a networked or referential topology, there are no limits, no rules about the order in which a learner can review the information. This topology gives the learner significant control over the learning experience. You may also be wondering what was meant by the word navigational support. There are many names for this type of support, but the most common are tables of contents and graphical overviews. Here are some examples of text-based navigational supports. Some of the most commonly referenced examples of tables of contents are Wikipedia sites. Their responsive tables of contents allow the user to move throughout the article by clicking on the desired section within the table of contents. These are graphical overviews. They rely less on words and more on images. Graphical overviews generally require more room on the page, so if they are used, they need to provide lots of help. The 3 research questions in this literature review yielded a lot of information. The interrelationships between the elements of prior learner knowledge, text structure or topology, navigational support, and disorientation are complex. But we should all wonder, what matters most? Prior knowledge plays the most significant role in learner disorientation, both conceptual and structural. No structure or navigation aid can overcome the disadvantage of low prior knowledge. Learners that have either content prior knowledge or computer and internet prior knowledge will fare better than learners with low prior knowledge in both areas. Learners that have both content and computer internet prior knowledge can be successful in any topology. Text structure is the second most important. Topology makes a significant difference for low prior knowledge learners. Linear topology provides benefit to all learners and produces the least amount of disorientation. Hierarchical topology can be used by most learners, but low prior knowledge learners require navigation supports. And finally, networked or referential topologies are detrimental to low prior knowledge learners. Our third place finisher, navigational supports, doesn't do enough to mediate the impacts of prior knowledge and text structure. They are nice to have, but they don't affect learning outcomes in most circumstances. As mentioned before, all articles came from the peer-reviewed academic journal, Computers and Human Behavior. This literature review was very limited in scope in order to meet the requirements of the assignment. However, it was a comprehensive review of the articles from this journal published between 2003 and 2018. The website for the journal highlights that the key focus of the journal is to examine how human behaviors are shaped or expressed by computers. This is a specifically psychological perspective rather than an educational one. There is a significant potential for editorial or subject matter bias. Therefore, the conclusions of this literature review must be compared with findings in other academic journals that have different perspectives. So what can an instructional technologist do to reduce learner disorientation? I think we have to follow research-based design principles so that we meet most